Hey everybody, welcome to Live Coding with Jesse. I'm Jesse, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. I don't think we've ever dedicated an entire show to planning, but it's going to be collaborative planning. So I expect and I hope that there will be a lot of input from you, and I'll start out by giving you a rough sketch of what I think we should do to deploy the various parts of this project that we've been working on for months now. And then I want to get your input to see, is that plan even reasonable? Is there something I'm missing, like maybe something that could go wrong or some better way to do it? And then I'd like to take each piece and come up with a backup plan, because you never know what could happen. So I want to have a fallback, and this will all be in preparation for the upcoming launch in June. And I figure once we break things down and have a plan, then in future streams we can dedicate a stream to each piece of the plan, deploy it all together. I'd also like to maybe do some tutorial videos that aren't live, that are a little bit more well thought out and don't include all my normal mistakes. So after we do a stream, and I get it to work, then maybe I'll repeat the process with a test, version, and then have that video on my YouTube channel. That way it'll be a little bit easier for you all to go back and reference if you want to do it yourself. Okay, so great. Looks like we're up to a good amount of viewers here. So I do want to say, last week I didn't stream very much, I think only once. That's because I was at the Revolution conference in Virginia Beach, which was an awesome conference. And if anybody gets a chance to go to that conference next year, I definitely recommend it. One of my favorite conferences. The people there were very nice, and I attended a whole day of workshops on the second day of the conference and learned some really awesome things. Like I built an Alexa skill, which actually got accepted and it's live now. So it's just a basic skill called Weirton Facts. It's W-E-I-R-T-O-N. Weirton Facts. And Weirton is my hometown, so it just gives you some random facts about my hometown. So that was kind of my first Alexa skill. Kept it really simple. And then in my other workshop, that's where I got a lot of the ideas that I'm going to share with you today. Shout out to Francisca. I don't remember her last name. No. You know what? I gave her a shout out in the tweet, my latest tweet. So check it out if you want to see her name. But she works for Google, and she gave an awesome workshop on a lot of Google Cloud stuff. And we built a little Node app on Google Cloud. So you can check out that tweet if you want to know more about her. And I think we're going to get started. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to set a Pomodoro timer. During that time, we're just going to talk about and discuss things related to deployment. If you have any other questions, like general coding questions or really anything in general, you want to know my favorite color, go ahead and ask it. But I'm going to save those questions for our 5-minute breaks, and then I'll save it for the very end of the stream once we get through all the deployment stuff. And then that way that'll help us stay focused a little bit, but you shouldn't have to wait too long to get your question answered. Oh, awesome. Francisca is here. I hope I'm pronouncing your first name right. Let me know if I'm not. I really would like to pronounce it right. And great. So if I mess anything up in terms of Google Cloud stuff, hopefully you'll be able to correct me there. So let me start this Pomodoro session. If you're not familiar with Pomodoro session, it can vary a bit, but it's usually 25 minutes with a 5-minute break. Alright, so I'm just going to do this in Markdown. I thought about opening up Google Doc or something to kind of mark down my plans or write up the plans, but I thought, hey, like we do coding, why not do it in VS Code in Markdown? It'll look prettier on the right hand side, so if you want to follow along you can check that out. And I'm gonna go down through and just give you my vision for how this is going to deploy. So let's take that React part first. So we have our React project, which is, Node. We have Express running. We built that out with Next.js. We're using Apollo for GraphQL. So if y'all seen any of the streams, you know how that is. We've already successfully deployed it using Now, which is from the same company that makes Next.js. It's Zeit. So that's a really easy deployment. It scales. It's fast. I want to use that because then that takes away the burden of server maintenance. I love the fact that it scales. So it should be able to handle whatever traffic. And updating things is super easy. There's no downtime. So that's the strategy now. So let's go and do a small heading for all these subplans. So let's just call this the React app. We'll do a small heading, and then we're just going to do a list. We're going to say now is going to be our deployment. So that one's pretty simple. I think that one is not really going to be where the debate's at, although Nikki says, is your mic pointed at your PC? Okay, you know what? My mic did fall down a bit. It came loose, so I didn't notice it until you just said that. There we go. I hope that's better. I'm going to move it a bit closer to me as well and away from my computer. Alright, cool. So that should be better. Sorry about that. I'm going to do my best to keep my eye on the live chat to see if there's anything related to our deployment. Alright, so now the next part we're going to do, so let's do React. The next part is going to be our database. So we have a MySQL database, and I'll go in and fill out the rest here. Files. Okay, so this is a good layout for kind of the structure of what we'll need. So for our MySQL database, right now, it's linked up on a DigitalOcean droplet. So we have one droplet. It's just a cheap $5 droplet, and it has our WordPress installation, any files associated with that, and then it also has the MySQL database all right there. So I don't want to keep it like that. The reason being, well, obviously a $5 droplet is not going to do it. We'd have to increase the size of the droplet significantly, but then that also provides us with a single point of failure. We could stay in DigitalOcean, and one option that I have thought of, and this could probably be our backup, is to use multiple droplets. So we would have multiple instances of MySQL and WordPress, and load balance between them, and then somehow make sure they're all in sync at all times. To me, that's a lot of work for some, and it's something that I've never attempted before. So that's why I say probably better for a backup. Oh no, I'm not showing my screen. I'm sorry. Anyway, here's what I've been typing. Oh, so sorry. I'm really excited about this. So I'm forgetting little things. Okay, so here's where we're at. So for our React app, we're going to use Now as our primary, and we'll also come up with a backup for that as well. So there we are. Thank you for saying something. Who said? Steven said I can't see the layout. Who can't see? Okay, so it looks like a lot of you said you can't see the layout. Oh, so sorry. It's been a while since I've done that one. Forgotten to show the screen, but it happens. You'd think after a year of doing live streams, over a year now, I would remember that, but still don't. Okay, so to solve the complexity issues of having multiple databases and trying to keep them in sync, I thought, why not go with one of these cloud-hosted database services? So there are several options out there. Because I did a workshop with Google Cloud, I think it would be easier for me and I'd be a little bit more comfortable if I went with Google's Cloud SQL stuff. So let me show you what I'm talking about, and I'll paste a link in for you because I have this up. At least I did have it up. Where's it at? I hope I didn't close it out. Oh no, here it is. Let me go back. I'm actually in the console to start setting it up. So I want to back up and go to just kind of like the sales page and info page for it. So here's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the Cloud SQL. Okay, so it's a part of Google Cloud. And I'm going to paste this into the chat, the live chat, so you all can check it out if you want. And if you click on that and it doesn't take you to the right place, please try copying and pasting it. There's often some issues with the links if you paste them into the live chat. So this will definitely work. We're obviously going to go with the MySQL option. But here's what a few of the parts that really stood out to me as to why I want to do with this. Fully managed, right? So automatic backups, right? That's awesome. Automatic updates, right? Those are two big things that we need to have that I won't have to worry about anymore. And you all that have been watching for a while, you know that I get pulled off projects and onto other projects and have deadlines, so it's very easy for me to forget stuff like that really nobody higher up is gonna say, like, make sure you do those updates. They're not even gonna realize we need updates or we need backups or anything. The only time anybody is gonna be worried about that is if something wrong happens, and then they'll say, well, didn't we have any backups? So having that taken care of is going to just free up so much time and worry from me. So that alone, I think, makes it worth it. But also the performance, like, I doubt I'm going to be able to match that performance if I just stick with setting up my own droplets. Same way with reliability. I love this. So DigitalOcean, as far as I know, I haven't researched myself, but a colleague of mine here has researched the security certificates on DigitalOcean, and they are okay, but they definitely don't rise to this level of security. So, I mean, look, we're not going to do anything HIPAA related, but if we wanted to, we'd even be good for HIPAA. If you're not familiar with that, here in the United States at least, if you're doing anything with people's medical data, you need to be HIPAA compliant. So it's kind of a pretty high level of security that's required. So basically we have all these certificates and more. If you dig into the documentation, there's even more certificates that I can present to auditors when they come in, or let's say like the head of the IT department here, and say, you know, if there's ever any question about, well, how we set this up, I can say, listen, all of the data we have for this site is in a secure place. You know, these certificates are provided. So it's not always a big deal depending on who your client is or what you're working on, but here in this setting we do go through data security audits and things, so it's definitely important for me to have that. Okay, so that's just a little overview. I'm going to check the live chat, see if there's any questions. Alright, I don't see anything yet, which is okay. I guess it's good. So I guess that means what I've been saying so far makes sense. So we're gonna go over here, and I'm gonna say Google Cloud SQL will be our option 1. Oops, clicking the wrong place. Okay, so that's going to be our option, and I want you all to think of some backups, because I told you a backup that I thought of doing, but realistically I I don't want to have to do that. With the short amount of time we have until launch, I'm not confident that I can get that working reliably in that amount of time. Okay, now we also have WordPress, right? So for WordPress, it's currently on that same DigitalOcean droplet that we talked about a few minutes ago. Okay, we did just, so Phoenix just said, you tweeted that you want to discuss something from RevConf here. Yeah, so the ideas that I'm getting for the Cloud SQL database, and then also down here for the files and images, which we haven't gone over yet, I got those ideas from Francisca's workshop at RevConf. So that's what I want to talk to you mainly about. If anybody has any other questions about RevConf, let me know. We can get to those later. I'm thinking about maybe doing a recap video from RevConf and putting it on my YouTube channel. Links in the description. So I'd love to do that as soon as I can. Realistically, though, I will be very busy until the site launches, so I can't promise you that that will come out soon. But I'd like to at least make the video while it's still fresh in my mind. Okay, so for the WordPress, here's what I'm thinking. All right, I've never done this before, but as far as I know, it is possible to host WordPress with Now. So if you're not familiar with Now, essentially, it's how to get. All right, from my perspective, from a user's perspective with Now, a user being like the developer, right, who's using Now as a service, you type in a command on the command line and your site is launched. That's it. It's that easy. If you want your site to use a custom URL, which we will, it's just another command. Super easy deployments, right? So that's the benefit of Now. And then you don't have to worry about the server, managing a server or anything like that. It takes care of scaling, all that. So we're already using this successfully for a React app. But for WordPress, what we need though is to decouple from WordPress not only the database, but also the files. Okay, so to be honest with you, I'm not 100% certain that we have to decouple the files, but I assume that you would have to. And I want to. I've wanted to anyway. So my first idea here to go with, this is plan A, is going to be use Now. And I'm just going to say backup. Our backup plan is going to be DigitalOcean. And if you all come up with any better backup plans, please let me know. But we can still take out the files, the database, and everything and go with DigitalOcean and just do load balancing on DigitalOcean. They set up so you can do automatic load balancing. We did that for way back for Project 1 last year, and that worked. We didn't use it with WordPress, we used it with React, but it did work. So at least we know how to set up the load balancing there. So I think this is a decent backup, but not ideal due to some of the things that that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so that leaves our final thing here are the files. So there's two big reasons why I think we should host the files somewhere other than, on a droplet tightly coupled there to our WordPress install. Number one, we need to migrate a ton of files from the old system, which is based on Electron and is currently hosted on campus here, just a few buildings away. So I need to be able to store those somewhere else and keep the file structure. I could do that on DigitalOcean. I would have to get extra storage for the droplet though. And then again, there's the whole management of it, right? I still have to manage that. Number two is when a user's going to upload a file to WordPress, right? So whether that be me or somebody else, in my department, or even users from other departments that we're going to train over the course of this next year after this launches. We're going to train, go department by department, do training, give them their own WordPress accounts, limited access so that they can update their own content. They're going to want to upload documents and images. I don't want those to just go on the Droplet. Let's say it gets out of hand, people start uploading a ton of really big things. It could take up the space on a Droplet quickly. I don't want to go overkill and pay for a ton of space, but I also don't want to get taken off guard and fill up all the space in my Droplet. So something like Google's cloud storage buckets, I think would work better. It would give us more flexibility in terms of storage, and it would have availability. So let me show you what I'm thinking with Google's cloud storage. So again, I have the documentation open and not like the sales page. So let me go back to the sales page here. The sales page has like the main points that you want and the nice looking graphics. So that's why I'm going with that. Products, let's see, storage, cloud storage. I think I'm still partially in the documentation part of it. Use cases, features, good features. No. Alright, I was kind of hoping for a different page. Let me see. Oh well. I'll just go back to the page I was on. I think it's fresh enough in my mind that I can explain this a little bit more without it. And I did actually have a storage bucket that I created from the conference, from the workshop, that we could go to if I need to get into it a little more. I don't really want to get into technical stuff, but just say like, essentially you could see the prices. Think of Dropbox or Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive, right? Think of that, but being able to drop all your files in there and have them available for consumption at a URL for websites. That's kind of like what we have here, and we're paying a price per gigabyte per month, okay, which I love that. So that means we pay for what we have in there. If we put more in there, we pay more, but we don't have like this fixed limit, which is what I was afraid of. I don't want to overpay, and I also don't want to get stuck. So this will allow us to scale nicely. I can come in on a regular basis and clean things up if I need to, and say like, yeah, we don't need 5 of these images, or so-and-so uploaded like this gigantic 5K video or something crazy, and we definitely don't need that. So I love that, and I love the fact that I don't have to worry about like backups. I don't have to worry about like providing for that on my own, like maintenance to that server. It's taken care of. So this is, since I work with this already at RevConf, I feel more confident working with Google's product. I know Amazon offers a similar product. I assume Microsoft does. I'm not 100% sure though. But I think given the timeline, I could probably set this up more quickly than I could otherwise. My department already has a Google account set up with billing attached, so I just need to make sure and talk to some people who understand how the billing process works here. I try to keep myself out of that because it's just a lot of extra paperwork. So I got to talk to my colleague and make sure that we don't get in trouble for setting up this account. But I'd like to set that up soon, and I'd like to do that on the live stream coming up soon. So I'm just going to go with, on here, I'm going to say Google Cloud Storage. Okay, so these are mostly just like the plans, plan A, right? We still need our plan Bs, our backup plans. So that's kind of what I want to discuss, whether or not, number one, whether or not these plan A's are any good, or if there's something I'm missing. And then number two, what should plan B be? Especially if any of you have used any of this stuff or something similar on a real project, I definitely want your input. I'm going to check my timer too. So we got about 5 minutes, and then I'll get to some of the questions that are unrelated. Let me scroll up a bit, make sure I haven't missed anything. Let's see. Let me check out. Alright, so far I haven't had any comments on this outline. Okay, so Arunesh says AWS S3 should be good. S3 is the storage stuff, right? You know how AWS is, and you don't know what anything means. If somebody already hasn't made a browser plugin that translate AWS's names into something more reasonable, then somebody should make it. Maybe I'll try to make it. But I did work with some AWS stuff as well when I did that Alexa skill workshop. Realistically, though, I think if I'm going to use Google Cloud SQL and Google Cloud Storage, that's fine. If I'm going to switch and do something with Amazon, with AWS, I'd rather do AWS for both, because that's just one less account that I have to worry about managing. So I'm open to it. I just want to know, what are the differences between going with AWS and that's Amazon Web Services, if you're not familiar with the name. So going with Amazon versus going with Google, what are the differences? Is there any good reason to go with one or the other? Let's see. Okay, Nikki says Nikki doesn't have experience, but heard Westboss and Scott Tolinsky talk about Cloudinary for image storage on the Syntax podcast. Nikki also says that's a great podcast. You know what? I haven't listened to that one yet. I'll have to add that to my podcast. Actually, I do want to give a shout out to the Tales from the Script podcast. So the guy who does that podcast, I got to meet him and hang out with him at RevConf, and super nice guy. So check that out. Also, there's a podcast called Darknet Diaries. If you're interested in like hackers and things like that, and security, check out Darknet Diaries podcast. I binge listened to that on the way back from RevConf, and I listened to every episode. It was that good. So definitely check that out. Okay, Arunesh says AWS S3, which is their storage, has a good backup strategy. Okay, all right, that's cool. Definitely need to look into that. Steven says Westboss likes Cloudinary a lot. I wonder, now I'm just saying, I have no proof of this, but if they mention Cloudinary a lot on their podcast, are they getting referral credit or something for Cloudinary? That doesn't mean Cloudinary is not good. It just makes me wonder. Okay, we got another suggestion called Backblaze. Arunesh says AWS S3 is the cheapest. Oh, Nikki says yes, they are sponsored and are upfront about it. Okay. Okay, let me mark down some of these suggestions for our storage here. So we're going to add as potential options AWS S3. We're also going to add Cloudinary. And then the last one that was mentioned, I'd never heard of before, Blaze. Backblaze. Okay, so these are going to be our options that we need to look into. I don't have a ton of time to spend on researching this, so I'm just going to look into them a little bit more. So if you all have some reasons why you would recommend one over all the others, let me know. That would be very helpful. Let's see. Oh, I'm going to do the 5-minute break right now. So during this 5-minute break, I'm going to answer any questions that are unrelated to our current topic. After that, we're going to reset the timer. We're going to get back to discussion, make sure we have backup plans for each one of the pieces that need to deploy. All right, so we have a lot of people saying hi. I'm not going to go through everybody, but if you did say hi, I'm saying hi back to you right now. I do see all the hellos. Let's see. Oh, Nikki said just published part 2 of Fresh Dev Environment blog post. So cool, everybody check that out if you can. Michael says, you remember when your boss used to go away to team building conference? I've got a feeling this is going to be like that. Husam asks if I would make an algorithm course. I could. I'd tell you the truth, I might not be the best person to make an algorithm course. I mean, I've done them successfully, but that wouldn't be top on my list of things I would feel confident that I could contribute something, but I'm open to it. I'll definitely add that to the list of potential video tutorials and things that I could make. Okay, Michael, who's with us frequently on the live stream, is having trouble with his internet, which that really stinks. Sorry about that. If you're still with us, sorry about that, Michael. If you can't watch it now, but you can watch it later on, definitely just put your input into the comments or DM me or something, and I would still appreciate your opinion on these things. Okay, Rick Adams says, which book and or video titles are recommended for a thorough base of software development regarding object-oriented programming, SQL or SQL, depending how you like to say it, RBDB, design, and scripting in Java? Oh, I don't really know, because I don't deal with like Java at all, and I minimally deal with SQL, and realistically, with React, we're not really doing object-oriented programming, so I don't really know. Does anyone else have any suggestions for books or videos on those topics? If you do, please let us know in the live chat, or if you're watching later on, please throw it in the comments to the video. Phoenix said, I once listened to that, meaning the Darknet Diaries podcast, and never again since I started having thoughts about Darknet, bad thoughts. Yeah, well, if you've ever been tempted to be, a bad hacker, then maybe that's not the show for you. It'll be too tempting. Lawsonot3 asks, what's the question? Basically, our question now is, what are the best ways to handle these different pieces of the deployment that we need to do for our current project? That's project 5 in this video series. So in particular, if you have any opinion about any of these products for file storage, please let me know. Francisca says, as far as I know, on standard products like storage, the large providers are all equally good and similarly priced. It's probably simpler if you have one provider for all your services. Okay, cool. Yeah, I definitely agree on having one provider for all the services. So, and thank you for that. Let's see. Okay, so all cloud storage, Azure is expensive. Okay, so Azure is maybe, we didn't even add that as an option, so I'm not going to add it in right now. Nobody really suggested it, but that would be Microsoft's version of this. Joshua asked why I'm using WordPress for the front end. We're not using WordPress for the front end. React is the front end. WordPress is just handling our content management. I needed something that was very user-friendly for the people that are going to have to edit this, because we're going to have a lot of people that have no coding experience editing this. So WordPress does provide, I think, a pretty simple user experience, and it also has a huge community of developers, that I can reach out to if I need help to customize some things. I do have somewhat of a background in WordPress as well. When I freelanced, I used to do a lot of WordPress sites because it seems like every small business has a WordPress site. All right. Let's go back and we'll do one more Pomodoro session. We may not even take the whole session, and then I'll go back and make sure I've answered all the questions here. But I want to go back and fill this list out a little bit more. So keep it coming with all the ideas. Definitely appreciate it. I've already had a few ideas that I never thought of because I've never heard of these services. Let's see. All right. Lawsonot says, all I know about them is AWS is the most solid choice, not considering price, or Firebase is from what I've seen. Okay, yeah, so Firebase being a Google product, I don't think we'll need Firebase though. I mean, because we definitely already have the data in a SQL database, so I don't want to convert, I don't want to switch it over, but so that's why I'd rather go with a cloud SQL. Amazon does have something similar as well, so we could go with that. Let's see. Okay, Harshit's here. Hey, how's it going, Harshit? As you can see on the screen, these are some of the options that we're going with for deployment for each part of our project. So if you have any opinion on any of these, please let me know. Okay, so keep the suggestions coming. I think I've gotten through all of them. I want to talk a little bit about backup plans for some of these. So for our React app, we may be able to go with, if we can't go with now for whatever reason, and I'm not going to speculate on why. Let's just say it, we can't go with now. Our backup, of course, could be load balanced DigitalOcean droplets. Okay, why DigitalOcean? Well, we already have an account with DigitalOcean, so that would be faster. But realistically, could we do something with a different provider? Yeah, we definitely could. you know, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, or any other number of providers we could probably do the same thing for. I like that DigitalOcean has really easy load balancing built in. I don't have enough experience with other options to know if their load balancing is as easy. Okay, but this takes a little bit more work. We would have to keep up with the updates and maintenance on all these servers, so that's why that's definitely a backup plan. Okay, if anybody has any other options for backup plans that may be better than that, please let me know. It says, let's see. Oh, okay, Bo's here. I didn't see, so Bo Carnes, who does a ton of stuff for the Free Code Camp YouTube channel, is here. So good to have you here. And we have some more opinions on what we should do here. So, Quinius says DigitalOcean has spaces with backups as data storage as well, doesn't it? You know what? I believe they do. So I do believe DigitalOcean has the data storage backups and things too. So maybe, you know what, maybe we should add DigitalOcean here as well as an option. Makes sense. We already have an account with them. And I believe someone else in my department has used the storage in DigitalOcean, so I'll be able to talk to them and see what they thought of it. Bhavin says, are you also looking for network latency problem? Many times we experience in some regions of the world websites load very slow due to network latency. Well, yeah, I definitely want to avoid latency as much as possible. I'm not sure, other than trying to make my site as small and fast as possible, I'm not sure what else I could do in terms of helping with network latency. Mad Duchess says, perfect timing for this topic, working on mine, thanks. You're welcome. I'm glad. Hopefully this will be helpful to you. Oh, okay. Steven has a very reliable, kind of old school method here. Steven says, how about a couple of thumb drives and DVD-R archives? Yeah, we could add that in the mix, right? You know, it'll be totally offline. We don't have to worry about hackers getting in, stealing or corrupting our data, right? That would actually be hilarious, just to have like a little piece of artwork hanging in my office that are like the entire website in thumb drives or something like that. Maybe I'll have it in glass that says break in case of emergency. Just Harshit says, by the way, you will be using Docker for WordPress now? Yes. So that's, let me just show you a little bit of the details about how this would need to work. So I've already forked the example for how to use WordPress with Now. So if you check out this FUS Marcom, here, I'll give you a link to it. So our organization that we've been building all our stuff in now has a fork of this so that we can modify it if we need to. But basically, yes, we have a Docker file, and that's where things run. So if you see, like, this is where we get all the WordPress stuff, right? And they actually have SendGrid built in if we need to do emails. We aren't going to need the SendGrid part of this, or at least we aren't going to use it. I'm not sure yet if we need it so that WordPress will still work. There are some parts of WordPress that auto send emails, you know, to like people when they sign in as users, or to whoever the admin is, which would probably be me. whenever new users sign in. So we may need the email just for that sort of thing. So might keep it, but essentially, for those of you who know Docker, this will make more sense to you. But these are all the instructions to get WordPress up and running within that Docker container. So I need to spend more time kind of studying this to figure out, because there are a few things in use here that I've never used before. So Harshit mentions HHVM. I've never even heard of that before, much less used it. So that's one of the things I want to research more about. Harshit says it will be 2 times faster than PHP 5. Hey, well, I like that. Anything to make it faster is good. So if anybody knows a little bit more about Docker and can kind of see what's going on, or you want to use the link to to check it out, inspect it a little bit more depth, if you have some input for me, that would be great. But this is the official example. If you go to the Now documentation and you look up WordPress, this is where they point you. So it's at least trusted by the Now team to use with WordPress. So I'm kind of basing my confidence on that. Michael Creel has a good point. Says, not sure how WordPress works. When you finally hand it off, you're going to need a lot of validation rules if there are going to be less experienced people working on it. I paraphrased a bit. But, yeah, yes, you're right. That's why we're holding off on giving other people access right now, and we're going to slowly roll it out and train people over the next year. One of the big reasons, other than just the time it takes for training, is making sure that we set it up in a way that users have as much freedom as possible without really the ability to mess things up too much. So we're definitely going to be working on that. Okay, let me go back here and say, so basically we have our plans and then our backups for everything except this Google Cloud SQL, and I'm going to put here as a slash AWS because, as we mentioned earlier, if we decide to go with Google here, we're going to go with Google, down here as well. If we decide to go with AWS, it's going to be AWS, pretty much across the board. But as a backup, let me know what you think about, essentially doing something like this, right? Load balance DigitalOcean droplets, and actually let me change this to say load balance DigitalOcean droplets here. Okay, now if you're not familiar with how we've done this in the past, essentially what you do is have droplets that are exactly the same. So we run a few droplets that are exactly the same, and then we would use DigitalOcean's load balancing service, which is an extra $20 a month, and then they would handle a lot of the technical details of it. We would just have control over a few settings, and then they would, the load balancing would be handled. So for each time we do this, for the React app, that adds an extra 20. For the database, extra 20. For WordPress, an extra 20. So that's an extra 60 a month that potentially we wouldn't really need just for the load balancing. And then on top of that, we'd need the droplets. So we'd have to pay for each one of the droplets. So I believe that using Now and some sort of cloud service here would end up being easier to manage and also less expensive. Also easier to scale. Let's see. we have a few more opinions on this as well. So let's see. Harshit says AWS RDS is also good, easy to set up. Use Docker for MySQL with volume, but I guess that would be overkill. Francisca says, I have to run. Thanks for the stream. We'll catch the rest offline. Thank you so much for watching and lending your opinion. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you for the workshop. I love the workshop, and I learned so much. It's going to help me with my job. So again, thank you. That's awesome. Okay. All right. So at this point, I still want to hear your opinions, either now in the live chat or later on in the comments. If you don't want to say anything publicly, you can always DM me on Twitter if you want. But I'm going to go now and start reading some of the other questions that aren't directly related to deployment. I did have a comment from Harshit. Harshit says, add AWS RDS to that list. So we're talking about the SQL list then? Anyway, I'm sure there's a little delay, but Harshit will let me know. I couldn't remember what the AWS equivalent of Cloud SQL was. So let me scroll up a bit so I don't miss any of these questions. So scan through them. Let's see. Okay, Chris asks if I've done anything with CSS Grid yet. I've just done a little bit with CSS Grid. So it's something that is definitely on my list of things to research more. I would love to know more. I've actually found some tutorials that I've like put in the links to in my Google Keep. I'm like, hey, I want to do this, and then I just haven't really had time to get to kind of do it. So definitely want to learn more about Grid, because from what I've heard from other developers, like that's where it's at. Oh, okay, so Harshit says the AWS RDS stands for Relational Database System. Cool. That's an AWS name that actually makes sense, right? Relational Database System definitely makes sense. Harshit says, I will catch up the stream. Not sure why you need DigitalOcean Droplets on top of those services. Oh, these aren't the DigitalOcean Droplets. These are the backup plans in case for some reason I can't do the primary. So on each one of these, the first option is what I want to do, but if that doesn't work out for some reason, the other options are potential backups. So I'm not intending on doing all of these things, just one in each category. I keep moving my mouse on the wrong side. This is the side that you all are probably looking at. Joshua says, what would you recommend for a geolocation API that could tell if you are standing next to someone? I was thinking Google Places, but was looking for some feedback. I'm trying to think. I've used like Google's geolocation stuff before, but it's been a really long time. Trying to tell whether you're standing next to a person might be a little bit difficult to get that accurate. Like trying to tell if you're within a certain range of a person is definitely doable. I suppose, assuming that person also has the location services enabled and you have access to theirs. But like, let's say if there's like 5 people that all have that enabled, I mean, I don't know, I guess it could, yeah, now that I think about it, I think that's definitely possible. With Google's geolocation services. Harshit says you could easily spin up RDS cluster that will give user and password, add to WP config, and database done. Yeah, definitely. It's Harshit. That's what I'm hoping for. The only thing is, like, I'm pretty sure you can do the same thing with the Cloud SQL. So I'm kind of like just wondering which one should we go with. I also want to talk to the other developer that works in my department to see what he thinks, and he handles the accounts, like the billing for the accounts. So I want to see, like, in his opinion, what would be easier to set up billing wise right now. So that may be a big factor as well, because I don't want any trouble in this process of getting all the accounts set up. I want it to go as quickly and smoothly as possible. So I think either one of these, AWS or Google, will work. Just kind of not exactly sure which one to go with at this point. Okay. Well, I've gotten to the end. It seems like I've answered all the questions. If you have any more questions, throw them in here. If you get them in the next minute or so, I'll see them and I'll be able to answer. Otherwise, I think I'll finish up with this stream and probably do a little bit more research on this. And our streams coming up over the next week will, assuming I can get the billing and accounts set up soon, our next streams will be basically deploying all this stuff. Joshua says thanks a bunch. Yeah, no problem. Mad Duchess, responding to someone else, says CSStricks.com has awesome tips for all CSS, but also on Grid. There are a lot of articles about CSS on that site. Yeah, definitely. I've definitely used some of the articles on CSStricks.com before. That's a great resource. RoboCop says nice stream. Thanks. I appreciate that. Alright, well, I think I'm going to finish up now. And, yeah, if any of you watching later on or watching right now think of something or some options or warnings for me for this setup later on, please let me know. DM me, comment, whatever you want. But, you know, definitely would like all the input that I can, especially from those of you who have actually used these projects before. Can give me some, you know, kind of good input that I may not be able to read anywhere else. Okay, I think that's it. I'm going to do my best to try to stream as many days as I can this week. And so hopefully I'll be seeing you a lot this week to make up for all the times I didn't stream last week. And so until probably tomorrow's stream, have a great day.